Hi there, I'm Stacy Perlin of the Perlin Foundation for Wellbeing and BlissFest Labs. You're joining me today to make some zines, which are short for magazine, and these are tools for us to use in our work, conversations, and even self-development. Okay, what you're going to do in order to use this tool is we've created an instant download link. So as soon as you hit submit with your email address, there'll be a link that pops up that you can click and download the 2 PDF zines for you to be able to work with. Once you print them off, we're going to make a little booklet out of the one sheet of paper. All right, so each sheet becomes its own little booklet. So let's make one together, and then we're going to go through each of the booklets and how to use them in a really good way. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold the sheet like a hot dog. All right, we're going to do it lengthways with the text on the outside. And what we're going to want to do is make sure that the edge is flattened. So use a ruler or something flat in order to make sure that it's nice and crisp on the edge. The next one we're going to do is we're going to fold it along the side again so that we are going halfway through. So there's about it looks like 2 pages on the booklet. And then we're going to fold that. Same thing, we're going to flatten that out, make it nice and crisp. And then we're going to do one more fold. So it looks like so. Now I like to fold it the other way as well, just to give it a bit of a crisp edge. Because you know paper can get a little funky. And part of the fun is that we always think it's going to look way cleaner than it is when we finish. And that's part of the fun of this project. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to fold it this way. All right, so we have 4 pages on one side, 4 pages on the other. And what we're going to do is we're going to either rip it in half or we're going to use scissors. All right, and the scissors, what we're going to do is we're going to cut right through just these 2 pages. So halfway through, once you get to the middle, you're going to stop. And what that's going to make it look like is like so. So that when you fold it back down like this, it gives you this kind of a fold. All right, now what that does is it gives us the pages in our booklet. So we're going to put it together like this. And then in order to sort of to flatten the pages, we crunch it all together one way, and then we crunch it all together another way. And ultimately what you want is the title page on the front, and on the back, you'll see the QR codes for the downloads to we've got a download link where it says community resources. It goes to this page where you found the downloadable resource so that if somebody else wants to use the video or access it, they can do so. The second one down is actually our mental health numbers and links. So on our website, we always have that ongoing page of links to easily accessible programs. They're either no cost or free, and they can access them using those links. Okay, we're going to take a look at one which is called The Perfect Choice. Let's go through it together. So this conversation document is meant to help us address issues about anxiety. And real-world examples, something that's relevant to the person that you're working with or yourself, and it allows you to take a look at best practices and research without feeling like you're going through a textbook. So the first page says, one day we had to make a choice. There were many options, and we didn't want to make a bad decision. This speaks to our anxiety about we get decision fatigue with all of the decisions that we make, and it gets worse when we don't want to make bad decisions. We'll hesitate, we'll stop, we'll overthink, and that creates those cycles of anxiety. So we're acknowledging it. We all go through these types of situations. The first thing is we say, and we thought about it. So we asked questions. This helps challenge our thinking. This helps us understand the situation better, and being able to have them write down their choice and then being able to write down some of the questions allows them to have a resource guide that they can use later. The next page says, we wrote down our thoughts to make sense of things. Now, this acknowledges our sense-making ability, right? How do we frame it? What's our perspective? What's the context of the conversation or the decision to be made within our lives? And then, because we get a little bit of anxiety when we talk about making decisions, we have another piece that says, we even sang a song about it called Perhaps the Clouds Know the Answer. Now, the funny thing is that most of us will think of a song that we know about making a decision, because there are so many songs out there that talk about making the right choice, making the wrong choice, making choices in love, making choices in family, all sorts of things, right? Because it's that universal an experience. So it helps us remind ourselves that we're not alone in this particular process. The next piece at the bottom says, it started feeling heavy the longer we took to make the choice. Right? And so this allows us to facilitate a conversation around a choice doesn't need to be the be all and end all. It's what we make of it. And then it also allows you to have a conversation to go, how important is this choice? How critical is it in the overall scheme of things? Is it a really important choice that has multiple layers of consequences, right? This allows you to have that conversation in a way of, why might it feel heavy? What's a way that we could move through life feeling lighter and more at peace, right? Next piece is, how are we going to move through this? Why does it matter? What do we need to consider? And what do we want to happen? So these 4 questions are actually based off of an earlier prototype of this tool, in which we were talking about how do we facilitate somebody else's thinking? How do we help them triangulate their thoughts so that they know what they want to do, what they have to do, and the things that they need to take into consideration so that they can make an informed decision and we can support critical thinking abilities. We can prompt them and learn more about them, and they can learn more about themselves through these questions. And on the last page, we have a reminder or a couple of pieces that help us ground ourselves back in our bodies, back in the conversation, back to a sense of connection and support, because that's really important. We want them to walk away from this whole exchange feeling like they have a plan, feeling like they have a buddy, and feeling like they have their own back. So it says, the best way to get better at making choices is by making a lot of them, to notice what happens after, and to learn from our mistakes. Each decision helps us to know who we are. That's pretty important and fairly special. And every time we have the freedom to choose differently for ourselves. Stuck? That's okay. You could write a list up of the pros and cons, give yourself 2 options to simplify the process, or play rock, paper, scissors. Now, we chose these because the list of pros and cons works when we're dealing with a lot of different choices. And we don't want people to think, oh, I can just throw a dart on a board and that's the yes or no or the answer, right? Or shake a mystery ball to tell me what to do. We really want people to improve their ability to understand the factors at play. The second piece is we can get overwhelmed with the details. It's evidence-backed that if we focus on only 2 choices, we're able to make decisions more quickly and more confidently. The last one gives you an opportunity to facilitate the decision making. Maybe it's a low risk decision they have to make, and you're able to play around with them when they're going, I don't know. Right? So then you go, okay, would you be open to playing rock, paper, scissors? And however the game goes, we'll be able to decide. You'll know as soon as the game is over and they don't want that option, they'd rather go with the other option or say, best 2 out of 3, then you'll know they've made the decision and you can validate that for them. Okay, so that is the first version of the tool called the perfect choice and some of the reasons in how it deals with anxiety. All right, the second booklet is called An Okay Life. Now, this one I find really helpful when dealing with depression and depressive attitudes or long-term moods that we're overly identified with. And so we need to decouple our identity from the experience of those emotions. All right. So the first page says, it was an okay day in an okay life, and I felt pretty okay about it. This addresses The pervasive idea in our society that we're supposed to be happy all the time, or that we are supposed to be hustling all the time, ultimately feeling like we need to be on, and anything other than that feeling of being engaged and active and we can do this, there's something wrong with us, right? So this helps us break down that piece right away into the conversation to go, look, you know what? Most of our lives are spent kind of boring, right? Being mundane. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's pretty healthy. Sometimes I felt things other than okay. This one time, I felt this kind of, and then we have a space for a feeling. In my body, it felt like blank and blank. Now, this is a great opportunity for them to be able to triangulate, which means this is what I'm labeling this emotion, this is how I'm experiencing it in my body, and then we're going to bring in the third leg of the triangle here in a little bit. But we just want to get them starting with, what are they using for labels? What are the top emotions that they identify with at this time? And then also, are they recognizing how they're feeling that in their body? Can we connect the two into a more mindful experience? That gives you the opportunity to go, maybe you're hesitating or not quite sure in how you're feeling this type of emotion. Would you be able to draw a picture? Or how about if we take a deep breath and we think about those times and I give you a safe space, what might come to mind for you, right? That allows you to lean into your ability to facilitate and coach and support and love them through this process. The next page says, I had a moment of feeling. It felt like blank, blank, blank. So the idea is, again, what are the labels that we're seeing them use? How are they recognizing this emotion? Is it somebody saying something to them? Is it them saying it for themselves? Oftentimes we're dealing with parents who say, why are you sad all the time? Or why are you angry all the time? But we're not sure if that's what we're really feeling. But we then identify at it because that's how other people are describing us, right? So this really helps us to start to take those things apart and to show people the threads that are engaged in all the connections that make our emotions possible. Okay, the next page is our third example. So another time I felt this kind of feeling. So once again, we're not saying this is something that happens all the time. We're saying that this is something that we experience and it happens, and that's okay. And in my body, it felt like, once again, this is the label. How are we feeling that? How are we experiencing that? And then we want to, again, wrap it up in a grounded piece so that we can facilitate that connection, that reaffirmation that we're okay, that we got each other. Most of the time, things feel okay. And I'm okay with that. So it helps us to understand maybe we're not this all the time. Another way to engage this conversation would be for them to start using that 5-point system, which is 1 worst day ever, 5 best day ever. Where are you on this continuum? With meh squarely in the middle. And that allows them to check in with themselves and help them challenge that reoccurring thought or that cycle of thinking that's saying, I am this all the time, right? So once again, we're taking apart that identity as this feeling to this is something that I experience so that it could teach me something, right? This gives us something to work with as far as teaching and learning opportunities. The last piece says, sometimes my thinking tells me that everything is okay. Other times I listen to my heart and it tells me that I'm okay. So the point of this particular statement is it allows us to have the conversation that our thinking doesn't always reaffirm a sense of safety. And in fact, we need to go within to sense that deeper sense of that deeper awareness of safety and quietness so that you can introduce the context, they are a safe place, even if they might not be telling themselves in their thinking that they are a safe place. This is not something that we can pick up just like that. We need to introduce it in increments in real world applications so that their subconscious and their conscious mind can start to connect those dots and to facilitate the way that their subconscious mind is moving through information and processing memories. Little bits like this to say, okay, sometimes my brain just says, yeah, you've got this. That's great. Other times we need to sit with ourselves and feel our heart. which is always going to go, hey, you know what? You've got this. You're worthy. You matter. And you don't need to be anything other than what you are right now. Our heart is really good at being able to reaffirm that for us. So this is an opportunity for you to be able to have that conversation in a way that they can actually apply. And ultimately, like I said with the first one, they can keep this with the notes that they have or the pictures, because the last 2 pages are about drawing faces that emote or represent those emotions. And this is the third piece of that triangle, right? So we have the labeling of the emotion, we have the experiencing of the emotion, and then how are we recognizing that emotion in ourselves and other people by what we see. And that's going to help them put together a dictionary of their own experiences, a booklet of their own language around emotions, and allow them to get a sense of, is this how I'm talking about my life? Is it where I want it to be? Is it something that I want to change? And then that means that you have this beautiful opportunity to work with them in a really constructive way. So hopefully these tools facilitate meaningful connections with the people that you work with and the people in your life. And if you have any questions or feedback or ideas, please feel free to let me know. We've got a contact form on the website. I'd love to hear from you. All right, thanks so much for supporting our work. Take care.